Good morning, guys, or afternoon, evening, whatever time it is that you're watching this. This is Best in Show Books, and I'm Shelby.
I'm Gina.
We're here at Naughty Dog Books, an independent bookstore in Nashville, Indiana. And today's episode is our June book recap. June book club recap. We're really struggling this morning on several fronts because technically it's July when we're filming this, but we're looking back on June's books. It's lots of moving pieces.
And we're still reeling from the fact that we're halfway through a year. And so it's just
it's all right. We're gonna get through it.
We got it. So book club recap for June.
Book club recap. The store's book club. So here at Naughty Dog Books, we have 4 book clubs for adults. We have classics, fantasy. I should know this. It's too early. We have classics, we have fantasy, we have mystery, and we have Gina's book club, historical fiction. So we will go through each book. We will tell you a little bit about the synopsis and then about what the group thought. And at the end of the episode, we will link all of these books if you would like to get a copy for yourself. They'll be through the store's bookshop, so you can read along with us or after the fact, whatever you want to do. So we're going to start with Fantasy Book Club's pick for June. Fantasy Book Club read The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig, and also a moment for this book. This is another one that has some very nice. The fantasy people know how to do these end pages. It's just so very nice, and it's kind of shiny. If you've been around, I like
it's
a
very
shiny.
Artsy
it is,
too.
And it reminds me of The Lady of Shalott.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
That's what the cover reminds me of because she's like underwater. This was one of the Fantasy Book Club's most anticipated reads for the year. And for probably almost all of them, it like totally lived up to the hype. And so I'm going to tell you right up front, I am a newbie fantasy reader. And even at that, not like a super fantasy reader. So this was romantasy, which is really popular right now. You know, you have Court of Thorns and Roses, like that whole Sarah J. Maas, that's super popular. And although this is different, it does still fall into the romantasy genre. So a little bit about the story. You have the main character, and she is a kind of diviner prophetess. There are 6 of them. And the way they divine and see these visions of the future or whatnot is actually through like a drowning procedure. Yeah, it sounds really strange. But in this Stonewater Kingdom, where it takes place, they have to kind of go in this big cathedral. These 6 diviners live in this old cathedral, and they can like literally like drown in this pool. And when they're in like this limbo state, that's when they see the future. And if you have read this before, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, Shelby, she's totally butchering it, but give me some slack. So, so then some of the diviners start going missing, and where the romantasy comes in, a knight comes in, and he is brash, and he is, in my head, he had like dark hair, and you know, he was like a rough and tumble bad guy. And so he and the main character team up to kind of figure out what's going on in the kingdom and what's happening with these missing diviners. And so, admittedly, as not a romantasy girly, I'm not an enemies to lover person. And that, I'm so in the minority on that because it's so popular. We even have a sticker here in the store that's like enemies to lovers, and it's got a dagger. But I was reading this and I was like, stop yelling at each other, guys. They were like, they would come in the room and just be like, ugh. But funny, when I mentioned that in book club, they were like, this is so tame on the enemies to lovers scale. So my personal opinion is probably like very slanted, considering I just don't read much of this. So what you can take away from it is that the club really loved it. And they're also fans of Rachel Gillig's other books. She wrote the One Dark Window duology and 2 Twisted Crowns.
I think that's right.
So they really enjoy her writing in general. And this is also the start of a duology. And unlike many other fantasy authors, if you enjoyed The Night and the Moth, you won't have to wait very long, because I believe I was told by the Fantasy Book Club leader, maybe in the fall, she'll be announcing her second book. It won't come out in the fall, but like the press and the publicity will start in the fall. So The Night and the Moth, Fantasy Book Club loved it. And if you are a fantasy reader, you like kind of little enemies to lovers. You like some romance in there. It's definitely got some dark gothic feels. So try it out. Night in the Moth.
It sounds very interesting. And when you were describing the night, I pictured Gerard Butler. And still like just that rugged, like I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna take charge. And
he's in my head. Gerard Butler right now is still very much Stoic the Vast from How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe not quite so much.
Love How to Train Your Dragon.
Yes, very much more Viking.
Yeah, that's
than
true.
300.
And in my head, he was kind of. I don't know. I can't even like describe it. I just did not like.
So oddly, your description makes me want to read it.
Okay, this is a good thing. Yeah, you have to read it and be like, oh, I see what you mean.
Okay, because I like an enemy to lovers if it's done mild. So even though you don't like it and that's not your thing, but the club saying that it's a little milder,
they loved it.
It's okay. And I don't like it when they're like deathly destroying each other. But the Caraval series and the spinoff of it, it is very much enemies to lovers. That's how both of the main romances start, and I like that. So antagonistic, like. I want to love you, but I also want to hate you right now.
I love a bad boy.
Yes,
you know, I love that, which is, I think is so funny because I feel like my husband is like the typical
not
good guy. Like he's just great. But you know, I like a villain, you know, I like a bad boy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You have to read it and see what you think about this guy because everybody likes him, but there was something for me. I was like, I don't know.
Well, now I want to read it.
So. Yeah. So you need to read it and let me know.
I will.
That was Fantasy Book Club's pick for the month, The Night in the Moth. Gina, what is the next book club pick we're talking about?
We are in Mystery Book Club, but we are doing a true crime. So every once in a while, our book club members for mystery, we like a true crime. We all like a good mystery thriller. Got to have some, good endings, find the clues, but we have several of us in the club that like our Datelines, our 2020s, our 48 hours, all of our docuseries, all of that. So the club indulges those of us that are a little on that weird side. And so this time we did Down the Hill, and it's by Susan Hendricks. And if you're from Indiana, this actually hit very close to home. The trial for this book actually just ended maybe a few months ago. And it is the true story of two girls from Delphi who were murdered, two young girls, like 13, 14 years old, 12, 13, 14 years old. And Delphi, we're in southern Indiana, here in Brown County. Delphi is on the northern end.
North.
Yeah.
West?
North
of Indianapolis.
North of Indianapolis. And it's a small rural community, and it really shook the community when it happened. Several years ago when that crime actually took place. But the finding of the perpetrator took several years, and then the trial took several years. Susan is a journalist who came along early on in the story when it hit national news. And she was part of CNN and their many news story channels, affiliates. And so she came along and got involved with the family of one of the girls that was murdered. And she became close with them. Like she started following them through everything, through the press conferences. She would be there. They reached out to her and invited her to things because they liked the way that she portrayed them throughout the story. So Abby and Libby are the two girls that have been murdered. And there was even there's this older sister of one of them. And
it was the
Kelsey, I think was her name.
The older sister, so it was Abby and Libby who were friends.
Yes.
And they had the day off from school.
Yes.
And the older sister dropped them off at kind of this, not like popular place, but it was along like this set of like rural railroad tracks. And they were just kind of, like kids do, just kicking around.
This was in February,
right?
too. Yeah. This was like, they'd had snow days built in because in northern Indiana, that's common to have snow days. So they hadn't used these snow days yet. So the girls actually had the day off school. They went ahead and took the day off. And this trail, the Monon Bridge, Monon Bridge Trail, the Monon Bridge is a historical landmark up there. And it's a well-known bridge, and it's very elevated over a ravine, and so, but it's isolated as well, and you kind of have to know the area to know where it is. This isn't like you just walk into a city park and there you go. So these girls take the day and they're gonna just explore. I mean, they're kids, they're gonna explore what they know, and when the grandfather, one of the girls' grandfather, comes to pick them up at the trailhead, they aren't there. And so they start to get worried, and after several attempts to reach them by phone, the other girl's mom, the sister who dropped them off, they then involve the authorities and like, okay, they're missing. So they believe they've wandered off the trail somewhere along and just gotten lost. And within a day or two of the search parties coming together, they find them off the trail, a ways off the trail, where they kind of recognize that, yes, that they've been murdered, but it's a location that somebody had to know locally what was happening in this area. It wouldn't be just like a stranger walked upon them and found and decided. So they kind of know right off the bat that it's probably a local person that is the perpetrator. So as Susan follows these girls' story with the family, she also has Kelsey, which is the older sister, and she takes her to Crime Con, right?
Crime Con.
Which is an odd... I'm weird, like with the pop cons and all this. I'm thinking, what kind of weird crime con is this? It's actually for people and families who are victims or are survivors of crimes. They tell their stories. They become advocates for their family or their causes. And so Kelsey learns to find her voice and kind of heal through this. And so does the rest of the family. They figure out that they aren't just lost and broken, that they can use their voice to help others who have survived, need somebody to talk to, or learn how to use the press and the media and, to get their message out and keep Abby and Libby in the media. So it actually turned out to be a good thing for Susan to bring her to this crime con. Susan does a really good job speaking for the family and keeping them at the center versus keeping the perpetrator at the center. So rather than giving the attention to, yes, you follow the story and you follow who the leads are and all of that, but I think I liked the fact that she let Kelsey have her voice. She let the family have their voice and showed kind of the human side of what a family went through. So what did you think of that?
I think it was a very compassionate account. I feel like, it definitely was not just kind of, digging up dirt and things like that. And this was actually written before the trial.
Yes.
So it definitely does lean, in my opinion, part memoir, part true crime, because you do learn about Susan, the author, and her time at CNN. You hear a little bit about her personal life, but then you also do see the close connection she has with the victims' families, and she goes to all the press conferences and things like that. It was a really interesting discussion with the group because we have a former, what is she, a bailiff? Or
she's former detective.
Yeah, if she watches this, she's gonna be like, I was not a bailiff.
Yeah.
But
I think she's had several roles within the justice system, but I think she was actually a detective at one point.
We kind of had her and another true crime junkie in the group, like lead the group, and so everybody was pretty much armchair detectiving that night. And what do you think happened? What do you think about this? What do you think? I think there should have been evidence on this. And so it's a thought-provoking read and. True crime, it's not one of my favorites, but it was, it's a heavy case.
It was, but I don't feel like it was salacious.
No, that's think a good word. It was
and
not.
I think that was why this one was an interesting read, because it wasn't the gory details of the crime. It's very little about the crime itself as far as discussing the details of what happened to the girls. But there was more to, because it's taking place before the trial, you still get the arrest of the person that is on trial, which I wasn't sure that it was going to go that far.
Right.
I thought it would stop before they got to that, since knowing that it came out before the trials. It was an interesting read. I don't know that it would be everybody's cup of tea.
Agreed.
I think if you are familiar with the crime at all, this is a good read. Or if you do like your true crime and don't like it gory and
salacious.
This was a good read. She does a great job. She's a journalist, so the writing was well done. So
concise.
Like it doesn't meander all over the place and follow rabbit holes. But you do get her memoir too. So know that going into it, it is a little bit of her journey getting here and how she felt along the way too. So Down the Hill by Susan Hendricks. And that was our mystery book club for this month. And now we're going to talk about the classic book club, which they are still on one particular book.
One particular book. And if you watched last month's episode, it was Anna Karenina. And over this summer, the Classics Book Club is actually taking like 2 or 3-ish months to read this. So for good reason.
It is quite an epic.
The font is minuscule. Font for ants. It's so small. And the group actually hasn't met yet to discuss this. So in the July recap, we will have full thoughts on that. But if you want to learn a little bit more about Anna Karenina and you're like, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to blow through it and tag team it with them. You can go back to our May book club recap, trying to keep my months straight.
I know.
And we can link that here and you can see a little bit about what we talked about last month about this. I know that the group is like chugging along and I didn't expect it, guys. I thought we'd have some quitters in there, but I really don't think we have. I see people's progress on Goodreads and I'm like, oh my gosh. And people have said, my Libby, my audiobook ran out and then I had to like find a physical copy and come in and get one. So I'm really excited to hear what they think about this because it is quite an accomplishment to finish Anna Karenina.
It's an epic story. I mean, like it's truly an epic saga of a tale. And so I enjoyed it. It's been a few years since I read it. I almost tried to read it again, but I'm like, we have so many other books that I didn't have the brain space to, knowing that I've already read it once, I didn't have the brain space to follow it again. But it is a good story. And so find out what Anna and Karenin and Vronsky are up to.
And I know what next month's Classics Book Club is, but I won't reveal it here. But I'm excited for it. I have already read it. I'm going to reread it. I guarantee you've already read it. I'll tell you after this episode.
It's like, I think I know, but I'm not quite sure if that's the one she picked.
It's in the back room.
Okay.
So next month's classic pick will also be good. A nice short
1 month
read. 1 month read. Much quicker than Anna Karenina. So we'll keep you updated on that as the group discusses it.
And always, if you want to know what's coming and what we're reading currently, you can go to the bookstore, Naughty Dog Books website or our Facebook page if you want to know what we're going to discuss at the end of the month, if you want to know what our book club is currently reading. So if you want to read along with. Yeah. We would enjoy that too.
So we should have one more book club. We do. Gina. And it's yours.
It is. It's the historical fiction. This month was a little different because the author is David Baldacci, and he is not a historical fiction author, and it is The Strangers in Time. He actually, this is his first historical fiction. So I have never read David Baldacci before, and that seems odd as like mystery and crime, but I don't know why I never picked him up. So there were lots of people in our group that had read his other books, his I would say political thriller, maybe along that lines, crime thriller. Yeah. But so I was interested to see what they thought switching different genres, if you will. So this particular story is in World War II in London, and it's an interesting one because there's no romance. There's no, it's not that typical World War II story, or there's always seems to be a romance when you read World War II stories anymore, it feels like to me. So there are two kids, Charlie Matters, and he is a rough and tumble kid from the East End. He lives with his grandmother. His mom and dad have been killed. Dad was killed in the war. Mom died, well, actually, of a bombing in London, going to school.
The Blitz?
Yeah, going to school to pick him up.
Oh, my
So
gosh.
it was really tragic. So he lives with his grandmother. They actually have an apartment or a flat of their own with their own kitchen and their own bathroom, which is very unusual in that time frame in that area. Has quit school and doesn't tell grandma, and he's like living the life of fending for himself on the streets. And he comes home and he's like, look what I did. I worked, but he really didn't work. But he's kind of Robin Hood-y. Like, he doesn't ever steal from anybody he thinks can't afford it. He tries to find people who are wealthy or can afford maybe to lose a chicken or some eggs, or like, he's not stealing money. He's and not that stealing is good, but he's trying to do it in a way to support grandma, who's working really, really hard, but is elderly and just can't quite make it happen. And she wants him to have an education, but he's like, I can help. And then there's a little girl, Molly Wakefield. Molly has been living in the country. So when the Londoners start with the blitzes and everything, they sent their kids to the countryside. She went to the countryside. So she has been living in the country for like 5 years. Oh my gosh. Even after some of the kids came back, she stayed. And there was a hospital unit. And the aunt of who she was staying with was a nurse. So she was taking Molly with her to the hospital to do things. But because they were so shorthanded, she was doing way more than rolling bandages. Like, she was physically in the hospital learning about the wounds and how to clean them, because that comes into play later when they come back to London. So she comes back to London on her own accord without her parents knowing. And so they don't send for her. She just decides, I'm going home. She finds Charlie outside of her house and she follows him. They end up in this bookkeeper's shop, Ignatius Oliver, who is
what a name.
Yes, so is a widower. His wife was killed. And so they have this weird trio of a friendship. He becomes kind of their protector, and there's a mystery that comes about, and he helps them figure things out. It is friendship, loyalty, family that is not blood. Mm-hmm. It is a truly endearing little story. The club really enjoyed the story and really enjoyed the look behind what was happening in London after the Blitz, but still going through the bombings. You still had rationing, so like what families went through with the little coupon mm-hmm. cards where they had to, their ration tickets. So it was a unique look, and I think the fact that it was through a child's eyes a few times made it. These kids grew up really quick.
Oh yeah,
and so the things they said and did were like, I don't know as an adult that I would have been as brave as some of these mm-hmm. two were. The ending felt a little bit rushed in a way, but yet the last chapter wrapped it up very nicely. So it's a unique version of a historical fiction. I think it was done well. Our club really liked it. There was a few that were kind of questioned a few things because the kids are so grown up.
Yeah,
like
so capable.
So capable. It was like, could they really? What?
Yeah.
But I think that, again, we put our time frame here. There's no way our kids, not having lived through the war, could have experienced that. But these two kids probably could have. They probably could have made the decisions that they did. So
yeah,
it was a great story. I enjoyed it.
I think it's interesting, not only that it's told through a child's perspective, but that there's no romance in it. Because historical fiction is very heavily inundated, I feel like, with romance. And sometimes that kind of not takes you out, but it does kind of, everything else falls away in the wake of a romance, whereas when there is no romance like that, then the story is what was happening and what the people were going through.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Interesting perspective.
It was. And I think that was the coming off of David Baldacci's other writing style and his other books. I kind of feel like, because he's not a romance writer, he's a mystery crime thriller. So I know. As you said that, I'm like, that probably had a lot to do with, I think if he would have wrote a historical fiction and tried to do romance, everybody would have like, wait.
Yeah, true.
Too many things, too many changes. So David Baldacci's Strangers in Time was our historical fiction this month, and highly recommend.
So that was all of it. That was our month in books. Here at the store, we had fantasy, mystery, classics, kind of classics.
Yeah, they're still reading it.
And historical fiction.
Historical fiction, yeah. So if any of these books sparked an interest for you, the links are down below. We appreciate you guys so much, and thank you for coming and watching yet another episode of Best in Show Books. I'm Gina.
And I'm Shelby.
Thanks for coming and hanging out with us today.